Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I am your host, Seawall, checking in as I love to do to give you the latest and greatest updates on the Washington Commanders. I know it's been a full week and it's been a few days since the Commanders played their game, but perhaps we all needed this time to collect our thoughts, perhaps, before we all really got into a discussion on the Commanders' last game against the Chicago Bears. Maybe we all needed that time to think before we had a discussion on the topic. Got to get through housekeeping items. You all, this is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here will more than likely end up on your television screens. Bowie TV can be found on Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77, and the Culture from the Couch series can be found from 1:30 to 2:30 Monday through Friday and on the weekends during the noon hour. Again, I am your host, Seawall, loving to check in. And this series of Coaching from the Couch is all about the Washington Commanders. We're specifically going to get into the recap of Thursday night football. And you see the title, it was a sad Thursday night football occasion. Now, wasn't it, everybody? So if you're just checking in, hit that love button, drop a comment so that I know that you're here, and make sure you share this show with your Washington Commanders loving to be upset with the Washington Commanders family and friends. Let me know that you're here. We're going to go ahead and get into the conversation because there's a lot to discuss. I know that we've had, like I said, at the top of the Washington Commanders update, we've had a couple of days to think about it, but we're definitely going to get on into the conversation. And I see Kim Batty has checked in from YouTube. So we've got our Facebook and our YouTube viewers checking in. So say hello, hit that love button, share it with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. And let's get on into the conversation. Why don't we, Washington Commanders fans? So I hate to take you all back to Thursday night, but why don't we go ahead and just go there? You know, we have to play this game. It wouldn't be fair if we didn't. We still have to play this game. And it is the what's your one word? And that is your one word to describe how you were feeling after the Commanders game. So I see Sean Covington has checked in as well from YouTube. What's your one word? Drop your one word on how you were feeling right after the game. And we're going to try to keep it as PG as possible, you all. But I will put your comments on the screen so that you all can share how you were feeling. I see Kim Bass said she was disgruntled. That's a good word to describe it. And if it's taking you some time to figure out exactly how you were feeling, trust me, I absolutely understand. I see Sean Covington has figured out his one word, which is disappointed. That too. I'm pretty sure a few people thought they were shocked. Right? I think that's fair. How about unacceptable? I think I've seen that word used a few times. I see another word coming through from Daryl Kauser, embarrassed. That is for sure a word that I saw repeatedly come up. And as the night went on, we started to see some commentary come up, right? We started to see one of the limited partners, Irvin Magic Johnson, tweeted this: "Tonight, the Commanders played with no intensity or fire. We didn't compete in the first half and got down 27-3 heading into halftime. It was too big of a hole to climb out of, and that is why we ended up losing 40-20." Wide receiver Jahan Dotson after the game. Check the timestamp, 1 a.m. Man, oh man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't hey, that's not a one word, but it's one word in a letter said repeatedly. So that is what that is. And I asked this question. I had this poll up there. And if you all know Mama Waller and Pops Waller, they knew, at least Mama Waller, and she knew I was going to create this poll. And it had a few votes up there, which was how bad is this loss for the Commanders? And 88% said this was bad enough to fire somebody. And I'm going to go into a couple different things here. If you're just checking in from the Culture from the Couch series, this is Bowie Television's Washington Commanders Update. I'm your host, Seawall. We're going through just a recap of the game. And so now I'm showing you all on the screen that 88% of those that took this poll thought, yes, the loss against the Bears was absolutely fire somebody worthy. Now, have you all checked out this tweet earlier today from Josina Anderson? How about we read it all together and drop in the chat your thoughts about what she has here? With the Commanders coming off a 40-20 loss last week to the Bears on Thursday Night Football, she said that she's told as of today, managing partner Josh Harris's perspective is to continue to allow things to play out when it comes to potential staff decisions at this time, per source. Harris is a seasoned sports owner who is viewed internally as generally patient. I'm told one of Harris's biggest concerns now, though, is the impact an emotional national loss may have on ticket sales, which always has to be taken into account too. Separately, when it comes to any decisions on defensive coordinator, there's an internal impression that Ron Rivera would prefer to allow things to play out. Rivera's relationship with Del Rio goes back a while as well. A natural choice to potentially look to in the past would have been Chris Harris. Then she goes on to say, my understanding overall is that Harris does welcome counsel from other owners and also understands that early searches can be beneficial if he elects to go that route. But moves like that customarily occur closer to the beginning of the coaching carousel. Now, while I'm told some of the other limited partners have their own thoughts, and you can read between the lines there, we'll see how things settle as the season evolves. There is still time for better results, but the clock is ticking. What are you all's thoughts? I see Lamar Bland here has that this loss was predictable. How about we go back to just last week on the Washington Commanders Update, when I shared with you all that this is something that could potentially roll up on the Washington Commanders. If you believe in trap games, see, I try not to believe in trap games because I say, hey, everybody, all teams, they're professionals. So anybody, it's any given Sunday, any given Thursday, any given Monday night. Anything can happen. But if ever you believed in a trap game, that Thursday night situation was absolutely one. And why? Because you were dealing with a Chicago Bears team that actually wasn't that bad. I know it looked a lot worse than it was, but they were desperate for a win. More desperate than the Commanders because they had not won a game since November of last season. They were desperate. They were hungry. It was obvious. So it was just one of those situations where if you get caught sleeping, you're going to get slept. And that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, I started to think about these things, and then we'll get into some of the press conferences because, yes, Ron Rivera has spoken with the media on Friday and again today. A couple things were different on Friday than today. We'll get into that in a moment. But for the most part, he said the same thing. So that's why I'm going to share exactly what he said right off the field, right in that moment, because it's important to share those things. But unfortunately, you all, we're dealing with a culture that does things like this. And culture change just doesn't happen overnight. Now, I have seen some reactions and concerns around ticket sales, but that's a fair point. From a business perspective, you all have heard me say this as well. If you've checked in on Facebook, YouTube, hit that love button, drop a fire emoji. If you've heard me say, who pays $6 billion for a product to lose? That would be nobody. So losing cannot be a part of a $6 billion product. You would think not. So while things may not be changing as of today, I would think that at some point, individuals would want to see a return on their investment. And if you paid $6 billion for something, it's absolutely fair to now be concerned about ticket sales because you got to be able to see that return on investment somewhere. So let's continue to see how those things turn out. Let's see what ends up happening. But this is absolutely a situation that everybody needs to be watching. And before we even get to the Atlanta Falcons situation, because I know there was a lot of talk about, hey, Desmond Ridder, he's not doing all that well. But then what do you know? Come to find out, Desmond Ridder hasn't lost at home yet. So here we are with another storyline for the Commanders. While it might be a small thing to most people, and maybe even nationally, this team is yet again against the wall, against the quarterback with something to prove, against the team with something to prove. And yes, they have something to prove as well, but these games matter. And they're already on a 3-game losing streak, and you just don't want to get down into that slope of losing, because a team that has so much promise, what does it mean if the alphabet doesn't reflect that? An L is in fact an L. And with that being said, let's get right into Coach Ron Rivera's presser. You all know I like to show pressers because that is the immediate reaction from coaches and players. So check out, if you've already seen it, then this is another recap. Drop in the chat what you are thinking and your comments on what Coach Ron Rivera is sharing or what he shared in his press conference right after the game.
Obviously, anything can happen. How do you explain what happened tonight? Well, slow start, first and foremost. We did not come out and slow them down. You know, it's something we got to take a long look at and kind of understand why, more so than anything else. I mean, we're going to watch the tape. We'll look at what we need to do better. You know, it starts at the top. I mean, you know, we've got to be better, and that's on me. You know, and then we got to make sure we're putting you in a position to be successful. Defense keeps having these breakdowns the last several games. How do you go about fixing that? Well, you know, we got to look at the rotation of players, look at what we do, and make sure, like I said, we're putting them in position to be successful.
The explosive plays we have, is that a secondary thing? Is that a not generating pressure thing? What's going on there?
Well, I think some of it is just missed opportunities. Sometimes it's not about going after the ball as much as it's securing the tackle. I mean, these are all things that we're going to look at and talk about, and we've got a little time to do that now.
It's the 4th week that you guys have allowed at least 30 points on defense. What changes can you make?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and talk about those things until we get an opportunity to break the tape down, go through the tape, sit down, talk as staff, and then go from there.
Is there any part of you that's just kind of dumbfounded by the defense and kind of what has happened over the last few weeks?
Well, you know, there's reasons why things happen, and you look at those things, and those are things that, you know, we have to correct.
And St. Alex, generally, how do you think he played?
I thought he had his moments, you know, and it was unfortunate we didn't get anything going early on in the first quarter. It was kind of tough to get into a rhythm for him, and you know, then we got a nice little rhythm going And, we didn't sustain it. We turned the ball over. You turn the ball over twice, that's a tough thing.
Ron, I know it's the NFL and everybody's capable, but it's one thing, the Eagles are prolific
Yep.
offense, Bills are prolific
Yep.
offense, the Bears have not been prolific.
No, but that quarterback's been very solid. The quarterback had a very good week last week. He showed what he was capable of. He's shown it before. Did the same thing to us last year, gave us fits. It's a heck of a young football player, and again, sometimes he get hot, makes some plays. He's through to probably one of the really good receivers in this league, and DJ Moore, somebody I'm very familiar with. And they have a solid running game, and when you have that kind of rhythm going, it's tough. It really is. And you're right. This is the NFL, and everybody's capable, and that's exactly what happened today.
So I wanted to ensure that I played the presser right to the point that I wanted to reiterate of something that we discussed on the Washington Commanders update just last week. And if you're just tuning in from Bowie Television, I'm your host, C. Wall. This is from the Culture from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. You're watching the live discussion, which also appears on television each and every single day, Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77 from 1:30 to 2:30, and on the weekends during the noon hour. Yes, we are recapping the very sad and dismal Thursday night football game when the Washington Commanders lost to the Chicago Bears. I wanted to bring up the point again because Coach Ron Rivera ended up saying it, and shout out to my colleague, the great David Aldridge, for asking the question, where Coach Rivera had to further elaborate and comment on Justin Fields, and that Justin Fields gave this team fits last year. It's almost a year to the date. Matter of fact, I think it might have, that game, I believe, was on Thursday, October the 13th. And so we're looking at almost exactly a year to the date. Thursday night football at Soldier Field in Chicago. Yes, the Commanders came away with the W. But let me tell you, from what I could gather, and I even early Friday morning, I said, I got to find this game. I have to pull this up. And the reason why is because I was talking in the press box with my colleagues, like Justin Fields did the exact same thing almost last year. It's almost the exact same plays. The difference is the Chicago Bears didn't have the caliber of players to actually pull it off. So first things first, you've seen this before. You know exactly what's happening here. It's very clear because you've played this team. You've played this quarterback. Let's also take this another step further. You heard Coach Rivera say the comment about DJ Moore, whom he's very familiar with. If you all recall, Ron Rivera drafted DJ Moore. He's very familiar with DJ Moore. So why does it seem as if this team totally forgot the personnel that they were up against? That is what was challenging to me. This is not a new opponent. These folks are familiar to you. So why now is it like you're not prepared for this moment? You're familiar with these players. And I could go on with the list of preparation and just overall where it just seemed like, is everybody here? Did everybody show up? It's a short week. And let's go back to the desperation for a win. Did anybody take an opportunity? You know, this is something that I share with the audience. I say pro tip, Seawall, advice from Seawall. Check it out. Something I've been telling you all from the beginning is simply this. If you don't watch, please, first and foremost, please do not only watch the Washington Commanders. Yes, watch the Washington Commanders, but do not only watch the Washington Commanders. You need to be abreast of what's going on across the league. What are the trends? Who are the hot players? What are some of the hot techniques and schemes? And what's just going on? Try to get into the minds of some of these bright offensive and defensive coaches that are out there, and some of the best players as well. That's first and foremost. But other than that, also make sure you're watching the opponents. Always pay attention to what's going on in the division. That's a no-brainer. Absolutely. So you always know the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Giants, week to week, because every team almost looks different week to week. Not the Commanders, unfortunately, but other teams, make sure you're paying attention. Then pay attention to the other opponents, not just the division. What is everybody else doing? Track what's going on here. Because if they had even just been paying attention to the previous week, as Coach Rivera said, that is a very good quarterback they got over there. He had a great week last week. Justin Fields sure did. So why did it seem like the defense wasn't aware of the type of week that Justin Fields had just had? Also, note this, they absolutely lost. But you got to pay attention to how people lose. Because when the Bears lost to Denver, it was for sure almost a solid win. You would almost think they had it. Next thing you know, here comes Denver coming back, and Denver ends up beating them. That hurts. I mean, the Commanders had a tough loss against the Eagles, yes. But that was a bit much. And then, hey, Dick Butkus, may he rest in peace. We all know that news came out just before the game started. Chicago Bears players had a lot to play for. They had a lot to just come out there and prove something. Not just because they were on prime time, but they wanted to win. They saw the win slip right through their fingertips. So what are we talking about here? Everybody's not going to come out here tired. Everybody's not going to come out here unprepared. But it sure enough seemed like the Washington Commanders decided to do that. Maybe they underestimated the mindset of the Bears. Maybe they thought the Bears were going to be defeated from their loss from the Denver Broncos because they were defeated based on their loss to the Eagles. Not sure, can't prove it. But this is an issue that we've seen in the past. And you all know, hit your love button, drop your fire emoji if you've been with me for a while. And if you're new to the Coaching from the Couch series, Washington Commanders Update, welcome. Because I always share one of these tidbits as well. And that is, if it is a recurring issue or theme, it's a problem. And for some reason, this team seems to, they just either play down to whomever they're playing, whoever they're underestimating, which is what happened on Thursday, or they tend to exceed expectations and play up. And that was something that happened against the Eagles in the previous week. So at what point does something give? And I really want to see you all's reactions, commentary on when is it too long to be dealing with the same old, same old? When is too soon to make a decision? Coach Rivera said it. Hey, we don't have to make a decision right now. It's just week 5. Well, okay, but is it too early to make a decision or is it too late to make a decision? Still a lot of games left. Okay, but there's things that concern me. Let's go ahead and get into it. We know now that the injury bug has started to hit, and that's across the league. And now the Washington Commanders are feeling it, right? With Jeremy Reeves going to IR, with Derek Forrest going to IR. And Jeremy Reeves had this posted on his Twitter today. I appreciate the love and the thoughts from you guys. I ain't going nowhere. One thing about the journey, just because you get to the top doesn't mean you can't have more bumps in the road. I'm built different. I'll be back real soon. Love. So we're starting to see that injury bug set in. Right. And if you're also paying attention, you're also starting to see teams starting to get in their groove a little bit. And teams starting to show improve each week. At the end of the day, and I got this from Coach Eric Bieniemy, It's about the wins and losses. We don't need to get really into stats all like that, because those types of things don't get you into the playoffs. At the end of the day, the wins and the losses is what gets you into the playoffs, get you into the long term. And when the team starts to accumulate injuries, I think it starts to be a concern of, we got to get some more wins under our belt. We got to start getting a little bit more in the W column, because somewhere now, yes, it's still early in the season. But if this is something that starts to get in the way of perhaps team morale, team motivation, this could be a challenge where you could easily start to see things deteriorate quickly. I want to go back to the conversation that we were having last week, and then we've had it, we've heard it throughout the week, about Emmanuel Forbes. We know he had a rough game. I was definitely, and I will repeat it, that I said, hey, welcome to the NFL. Things will be fine. Emmanuel did not start on Thursday, but Coach Rivera did mention later in his press conference that Emmanuel was benched. So, and we know that of the stories of Emmanuel experiencing death threats, therefore deactivating his social media account. What types of tactics are being used? What is happening now to just get into the overall emotional space of players? Because this is tough. That's a tough league. It's a tough game. You all have heard me say that. But if there's a challenge where potentially, and Coach Rivera alluded to this a bit in his presser, where he said, we know he had a tough week. He didn't start. We got him out there, but, decided to, bench him to give him, some time. And it's like, is this something that could potentially be a long-term issue? And then you still have to really think about what resonates with the player. What resonates with that player, right? What may happen to motivate me may not work for Lamar Bland, may not work for Darrell, may not work for the next person, right? So what is the process when you can start to see the confidence wane, the confidence start to go downhill with a player, and you see it immediately? I mean, it's a short week, yes, but what are the conversations? What are the tactics? What's happening? Because the league doesn't get any easier, and these games get less and less fair, so to speak, because it's week to week. And as you start to see your teammates get injured, the player themselves might start getting a little nicks and this and that. It's something to watch, because what I'm seeing and what I'm sensing is for sure something that could spiral out of control, and it could spiral out of control quickly. We definitely said, and we saw, okay, how is this team going to respond to the loss to the Bills, right? And how are they going to come out, in a short week after almost taking it away from the Eagles? How are they going to come back in a short week? And what they did in that short week was actually look worse than they did the week prior. And that is concerning. And absolutely, it is week 5 going into week 6. Absolutely understand that there's still a lot more football to play. But again, as you're dealing with more injuries, just more time, it's got all of the ingredients to get out of control early. So this is a week. We said it in the short week, right? We said it in the short week. This is a week they were going to have to watch their back. They were going to have to come out strong, come out fast. Here's another hard truth. I know you please, I'm sure you've been waiting for me to say this one. Have you? The defense has to be who they're supposed to be on paper. It can no longer be what they could be. It really seriously has to be who they are. and they have to be who they are, or else what we see with the explosive plays when they're going against some of these top tier wide receiver ones and twos, that's who they are. That's who they are. And I know from watching them all throughout camp, I'm like, it could be so much more, but can it? Because if that's what you show me on game day against good to great quarterbacks, against good to great running backs, wide receivers, if that's what you show me when the lights come on, then I can no longer go by who I think you are and what you could be. It ultimately comes down to that's who you are. And that's where the expectations need to lie. Now, no longer based on what could happen or who they could be. And I'm going to put this comment on the screen here from Mark Moore. Inconsistent play all around, never know what team is going to show up. And from DJ Bland, well, if the coach would put his guys in position to make plays, because this handicap scheme is getting this defense curb stomped. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're almost at our time for sure. I know everyone's been talking about this. This probably was fuming since Thursday. Couldn't believe what they watched. I will tell you, and you all have seen this on my page, that even in the press box during halftime when everybody's supposed to get up and eat, we were all quiet. Nobody moved. You know, folks were working or just like sitting there in silence. Again, we know that team. I'm waiting for this. I can't even believe I'm continuing to say this, right? Because you've heard me say this in previous years, where the team that shows up is the team that I saw practice all summer. I have the same mistakes. I don't know what this is. This is something different. And I don't know. I'm going to go back to something that I shared earlier in the season, because even in week 1 and week 2, I was like, hey, I don't know how far they're going to go playing like that. Yes, they got W's out of those games, but I've said it, love button fire emoji. If you all remember me telling you, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but they won't get far playing like that. And that's not the team that I've watched practice since May. So at some point, it's got to come together. It has to come together. And I want it to come together because that's what I've watched. And that's kind of what I've predicted. And it's not about being right. It's more so about ensuring that what I'm watching, it's you can't help it. I think we're all in shock. If you go across the media landscape, for those of us that are out at the park on a regular basis, we do not know what is going on here. Seriously. I wish there was something else I could share. The only other thing I could gather is going on. Are we at a place? And I'm going to leave you all with a few questions and start to answer those questions while I'm rattling them off. And then we can close out for the evening, which is the defensive experiment over? Did it work? Did it work? Is it not working? Do they still need more time? Right? From an offense perspective, and you're not going to hear me say too much about the offense. And the reason why you're not going to hear me say too much about the offense is because they got a new offensive coordinator. They got a new offensive line. They got a new quarterback. And I've actually seen them in moments perform better than I thought they would. You know, one thing I've been very consistent on is this is Jack's defense. He's had them together. They've been together for years now. They know the fold. Anybody that's new, they bring them into the fold. This is not new for that unit. So it was going to have to matter with the defense in a way that was going to show up on the scoreboard. It was going to have to. It was just going to have to come. This was going to have to be the moment. This was going to have to be the year where it all made sense, where they all said, yep, we got it, right? you're getting your folks paid. You got others preparing to get paid. And so this was going to have to be it. And it just hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. So is it just not working? Is it just experiment over? And that's where I am with it. I'm giving the offense a lot more leeway, but let me be clear about the offense. And I keep saying I'm going to go off, but I need to say this. They too do things that I'm like, what's that? What was that? That I haven't seen them do in practice. Just the caliber of mistakes that are made. Understand that game day is completely different from practice because the pressure is on game day. The pressure is on game day. The lights are on. Everybody's watching. So and nobody's tackling, right? Nobody's tackling in real life. And life is not coming at you fast. For real, for real. Life is not coming at you too fast. But game day it is. But what's the point if what you do in practice, you're not going to do on game day? That same toughness, that same swag, that same stealth and stoutness isn't there. Then what? I do see plenty of comments coming in. Yep, this defense was supposed to play. Yes, they were. Yes, they absolutely were. This is so disheartening when let's be clear. The talent is there, and I see a few people, and I see Joe Harris saying the problem with this team is coaching. And Darrell, give everybody give Darrell a shout out. Yes, ATL, here we come. We will be in the ATL shawty. We absolutely will be. And it has all of the probability of spiraling out of control. I wasn't there at we in spiral out time after the Bills. I wasn't there. After the Eagles, I wasn't there either that night. But after Thursday night, I said, okay, this got all the remnants of this could go bad sooner rather than later. So what is going to have to happen? And maybe it's just me that thinks some things are just simple. I mean, just make sure you know who you're playing on Sunday and aware of what's happening so that your game plan and your schemes, I think that there's a lot of relying, at least on the defensive side of the football, where there's a lot of relying on pure talent, where it's just my guys gonna beat your guys, and I don't even care about who your guys are because my guys gonna beat your guys. No. And I'm not saying that it's a no because the other team's guys are going to beat them. What I'm saying is that you have to be prepared for your opponent nonetheless. You have to be prepared for your opponent. If you're not prepared for your opponent, then what you're going to do? Again, if you get caught sleeping, you're going to get slapped. So that's just all it is to it. That's literally what's happening. It's just not being prepared. And that's all that I'm seeing and sensing. But how much of that then starts to play on the psyche of your players or on the motivation of your players? We do something in my world of work and leadership where we would call them stakeholder profiles. Okay, hit your love button, fire emoji. We still got time because now I'm about to go into teacher session. You call them stakeholder profiles. And in a stakeholder profile, you know all of your stakeholders, right? What does that mean? That means you know everybody on the opposing team. You know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know who on your team's supposed to cover them. You know what the individuals are good at, you know what they're good at as a collective, you know where their areas of improvement are. and you try to play on that. You try to read that. You try to sense that. You try to proactively engage in a way where you can get them startled and say, oh, they're ready for us. They're ready for us. Absolutely. Don't wait for the game to come to you. Go to it. Right? This is not time. You have 60 minutes. In this 60 minutes, I don't want to wait and see what you do first. No, because I don't need to wait. We need to get out there. And we need to get out there first, and we need to get out there fast. Stakeholder profiles on each one, from the coaches to the players, and each player then on the team knows what the deal is. They know exactly what to anticipate so that everybody is prepared. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about anybody going 17-0, because I'm going to sit here and tell you, with that game being on Thursday night, I had the blessing and opportunity with my mom, and thank you all for wishing her a happy birthday, to watch a lot of Red Zone football with her. So I got to enjoy Red Zone. And in enjoying Red Zone, now I always go back and watch, like I said earlier in the show, I watch other teams' games all the time, opposing team games. But in watching Red Zone, I really got to enjoy it and actually take notes on which offensive lines. I'm like, wow, that's a really good offensive line. Oh, wow, they really got some good linebackers. Like, whoa. And just certain things of just knowing maybe certain things are across the league. A position that is kind of like the lost art, or position group, or just, man, these wide receivers are just out here cracking. So a lot of defensive backs have a hard time covering several different receivers and tight ends, but they got some linebackers out here that's still out here showing improving for sure. And just really understanding the game and seeing what's out there and what's happening, because this is just, things are changing. And these players are more athletic. They're showing more and more athleticism. They're getting faster. They're getting smarter about the game. And so the coaching schemes and all of that have to go along with it, and have to go along with that creative mindset and that overall preparation. You have to know your personnel. And going back to the Chicago Bears game, I was quite disappointed. I will say this, because Justin Fields did the same thing last year. And if Darrell is still chimed in on the chat, he said it. He said, Candy, you just said that. Justin Fields did the same thing last year. And Coach Rivera just said it in his press conference. I said, Darrell, the exact same thing. Go back and get the tape. Between that game and the Denver-Chicago game, that's all the film you needed to see, because that's all Justin Fields turned around and did to the Commanders on Thursday. Literally, it was the same thing. And I'm not trying to pour any salt in old wounds, but if you like to go and see it for yourself, go right ahead. You can find that game from last year, and you can go back and watch that Denver Broncos Chicago Bears game from last Sunday. It's the exact same thing. It is. So that was rough. That was hard to watch, because as someone like myself that enjoys watching games multiple times, don't tell nobody I said that. That's just between me and you all. I was like, were they watching? Did they see this? Because it was the same thing. Then you add on DJ Moore, and it's like, did anybody remember that DJ Moore played? I remembered. Did anybody else? You just let the man run free. All everyone can do at this point is hope. And I am concerned. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm concerned about it spiraling out of control. I'm concerned about it spiraling out of control, where the motivation and the morale is down, and it's going to be hard to get it back up. Because this was a game where they wanted everybody to come and black out and do this and do that and come, and the game is sold out, and then this happens. You have a teammate that's experiencing, you know, or loads of negativity on social media. It's just a lot. So how do you really get out of that? Yes, game planning, adjustments, preparation, putting your players in the best situations to succeed, even if it means mixing it up a bit. Getting your players in the best situations to win their matchups. But I do believe that there needs to be some check-ins to make sure people are okay. Is everybody okay? Um, because I do think that's important. Yes, it's football. Yes, everybody's supposed to be tough, but listen, check in on your people. Check in, make sure everybody's okay so that they can be clear-minded and ready to go and ready to just have that swag that I've seen these guys have. It just hasn't fully shown itself on game day yet. You all, thanks for hanging in there. You all have stuck it out with From the Culture from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. We will do a weekly DMV sports update later in the week. As Darrell already dropped in the chat to you all, we absolutely will be traveling to Atlanta this weekend. Hopefully, it's a bit more fun. And it's not like OMG in a bad way. So we'll see, remains to be seen. We'll talk a little bit more specifically about the Commanders and Falcons matchup when we all reconnect again on the weekly DMV sports update, among other things going on in the DMV in the sports world. So you all still got time to hit that love button and drop a fire emoji. And you can always watch the show later. You can always share with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. You can definitely always catch it on Bowie Television, Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity, Channel 77, 1:30 to 2:30, and on the weekends during the noon hour. You guys, I will talk to you again soon.